It started with a flash in the night sky, an unexpected streak of light cutting through Earth's atmosphere, followed by a roar that shook the ground. No one knew what had happened at first, only that something had fallen from the stars and crashed somewhere in the remote wilderness. Soon rumors spread faster than wildfire. They weren't meteors, they were beings, refugees from a distant world, stranded on Earth by accident, far from their home, and completely unprepared for the dangers of this planet. At first, people watched from a distance, unsure whether to fear or help. These travelers looked fragile compared to Earth's harsh environment, their bodies shimmering in colors unfamiliar to human eyes. Their movements were cautious, almost childlike, as if the world around them was something they had only imagined in dreams. Yet their eyes, large, luminous, and full of uncertainty, revealed something much deeper. They had survived a journey that none of us could even imagine, and now their fate rested in human hands. Across the globe, governments scrambled to respond, debates raging in boardrooms and newsrooms. Some wanted to contain them, some wanted to study them, but a different voice was rising, a call for humanity. Regular people, ordinary Terrans, began stepping forward. Scientists, volunteers, even hikers who had stumbled upon the crash site, all felt the same truth. These refugees weren't invaders, they were victims of circumstance, strangers in a strange world, and for the first time in history, humans were faced with a choice to stand as protectors or let fear dictate their actions. The refugees themselves didn't speak the languages of Earth, but their gestures were clear. They sought shelter, warmth, and safety, but Earth had already begun to push back. Storms unlike anything recorded in history, sudden wildlife attacks, and unseen environmental hazards started appearing around the crash site, as though the planet itself was testing these newcomers. And the Terrans who chose to intervene quickly realized that helping them wasn't just about offering food or shelter, it was about standing between fragile lives in a world that could be deadly without mercy. Among those who volunteered to protect them were engineers who could build shelters from the wreckage, medics who worked around the clock treating wounds no one had seen before, and ordinary citizens who carried hope in their hearts despite fear in their minds. Every decision mattered. One wrong move could cost lives, and as night fell, strange sounds echoed across the crash zone, metallic whispers, fleeting shadows, and a sense that they were not alone. Something beyond human understanding had followed the refugees to Earth, and it was only a matter of time before it made its presence known. The refugees huddled together, shivering but resilient, as the Terrans around them prepared for whatever would come next. The stakes were higher than anyone had imagined, and the fragile alliance between human and alien hung by a thread. One question loomed over them all. Could Earth really become a sanctuary, or was it only a temporary refuge before disaster caught up with them? And just when it seemed the night could not get darker, a distant roar split the sky, shaking the very ground they stood on, leaving both refugees and their human protectors staring into the unknown, hearts pounding, unsure if they were ready for what was coming. The shadow paused at the edge of the firelight, and for a moment, it seemed almost hesitant. The Terrans' hearts pounded, and the refugees pressed closer, their colors flashing in sharp, urgent patterns. Every instinct screamed danger, yet something in the movement suggested intelligence, a strategy unfolding that the humans couldn't fully read. Then, without warning, the shape shifted, not like an animal moving, but as if it had been deliberately manipulating its form, folding and stretching in ways that defied understanding. The ground trembled with each motion, and the mist swirled around it as if the air itself had come alive, just when it seemed the threat was about to strike. Another sound split the air, a sharp, high-pitched resonance that wasn't coming from the creature. It was coming from the wrecked ship. Sparks flew from its exposed panels, and strange, pulsing lights flickered along the hull. The refugees reacted immediately, moving in patterns that looked like a combination of fear and command, as if something dormant in their ship had just awakened. The Terran stared in disbelief, realizing that whatever had followed these aliens across the stars had not expected this. The crash site itself had become a battlefield of unknown rules, where even the technology of the refugees could turn against or protect them. The creature, or whatever it was, hesitated. Its glowing eyes scanned the humans, then the refugees, and finally the ship. The hum from earlier intensified, vibrating through the ground with a rhythm that seemed to pulse in sync with the creature's own movements. The Terrans could feel it through their feet, through their bones, a warning, a threat, and a call to action all at once. Fear and adrenaline collided, but no one dared step back. The refugees, sensing the shift, moved closer to the humans, reinforcing the fragile alliance that had kept them alive this far. Then came the second twist. From deeper in the forest, additional shapes began to emerge, smaller than the first but moving with equal intelligence. Shadows slipped between the trees, watching, circling, almost calculating. The humans realized with a shock that this was not a single threat. They were surrounded. The aliens had not come to Earth alone. Something had followed them, something that had been lying in wait, and now the camp was a trap. The stakes had escalated far beyond anything they had anticipated. This was no longer just survival, it was defense against an unknown force that outnumbered them and outclassed them in ways humans could barely grasp. The refugees' colors flashed wildly, and a low, vibrating sound emanated from their bodies. It was a warning, a plea, and perhaps a signal. The humans instinctively mirrored their formation, creating a perimeter that placed the refugees at the center. Every eye scanned the darkness, every muscle tensed. The Terrans could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down if they failed here. Not only would the refugees perish, but Earth itself might become a battlefield the planet was unprepared to handle. As the forest seemed to close in, the pulsing hum from the ship synchronized with the smaller shadows advancing through the trees. The tension became almost unbearable, breath held, hearts racing, the night charged with energy that refused to dissipate. And then, in a moment that felt like the world itself had paused, the largest shadow shifted again, splitting into multiple forms, revealing its true size and power in a way that no one, human or alien, had expected. The calm before the storm ended. The fight, the unknown, and the survival of both Terrans and refugees were about to collide, and nothing would be the same when the first move was finally made. The largest shadow lunged first, a towering figure that moved with terrifying speed, its glowing eyes fixed on the camp. The humans and refugees froze for a heartbeat, then reacted in unison. Torches flared, makeshift barriers were thrown into place, and the Terrans positioned themselves between the creature and the aliens, ready to defend at all costs. The refugees responded with astonishing coordination, their bodies radiating light in patterns that sent pulses of energy into the ground. The hum from the ship joined the rhythm, creating a resonance that shook the forest. The smaller shapes darted forward, testing the perimeter. But every advance was met with a wall of human determination and alien intelligence. Tools and improvised weapons clashed against claws and limbs that seemed almost impervious to harm. But the Terrans held their ground. Fear surged in waves, but courage surged stronger. For every creature that pressed forward, humans and refugees pushed back, their alliance proving to be more formidable than anyone had predicted. Suddenly, the ship pulsed with a brilliant surge of energy, and a wave of light erupted from its core. The creatures recoiled, startled, their coordination faltering. The refugees moved toward the ship, their gestures precise, almost ceremonial, and as they did, the forest seemed to respond. Branches quivered, the mist shifted, and the earth beneath the intruders' feet vibrated violently. It was as if the planet itself had joined the Terrans in protecting these travelers. The largest creature roared, a sound that split the night, but the humans and refugees pressed forward together, using both instinct and strategy. The smaller creatures scattered, some retreating, others immobilized by the energy field radiating from the ship. The moment of pure chaos began to resolve into something unexpected. The threat was not invincible. It had underestimated the combination of human ingenuity, courage, and the refugees' advanced, yet subtle, abilities. Then, as the last of the intruders faltered, the refugees approached the largest creature cautiously. Their colors shifted in calm patterns, communicating something the humans could not fully understand. Slowly, the creature's posture softened, and the glowing eyes dimmed. It was a recognition, perhaps respect or submission, but the danger had passed. For now, the camp was silent except for the soft hum of the ship and the ragged breaths of humans who had fought for survival. But just as relief began to settle, a new, unsettling vibration ran through the ground. The refugees stiffened, their colors flashing urgently. From the horizon, faint lights appeared, moving fast, unlike anything seen before. The humans' hearts sank. Whatever had followed the refugees here was not finished. The first wave had been defeated, but the true challenge, something far larger and more organized, was only beginning. The Terrans looked at one another, fear and determination reflected in every eye, knowing that the alliance they had forged with the refugees would be tested again, in ways they could not yet imagine. As the lights drew closer, the refugees exchanged a series of rapid, intricate signals with the humans, silently conveying the need to prepare, to adapt, to survive. For a moment, hope and dread balanced on a knife's edge. The night was alive with possibilities, and Earth had become a stage for something far greater than either species had anticipated. The battle was won, but the war, whatever it truly was, had only just begun. The first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, spilling pale light across the crash site. The forest, once a place of shadows and tension, now felt calmer, almost reverent. The remaining intruders had retreated beyond the trees, leaving behind only footprints, flattened foliage, and the echo of a threat that had not fully vanished. Humans and refugees alike moved cautiously, alert to any sudden movement, but for the first time in what felt like days, the air was free of immediate danger. The refugees gathered near the ship, their forms glowing softly in muted, steady patterns. They seemed to be repairing, or perhaps reactivating, something deep within its core. The Terrans watched silently, awe replacing fear. They had witnessed an intelligence that was not only advanced but deeply attuned to both its environment and the humans who had stood beside them. It was a humbling reminder that courage was not just about strength, it was about connection, understanding, and trust. A small group of Terrans moved closer, helping to clear debris and assist the refugees without overstepping. Every gesture mattered, every shared action strengthened the fragile bond that had formed under extreme circumstances. For all the chaos and danger of the past days, there was a sense that something lasting had begun. These were not just strangers from another world, they were survivors, allies, and perhaps even friends. Questions that had weighed heavily on the humans began to find answers. The refugees had not crashed intentionally, they had been fleeing, guided by instincts and technology beyond comprehension, seeking refuge from a threat that spanned the stars. The creatures that had attacked them were scouts, part of a larger force that had been tracking them for generations. Earth had been a stopover, a temporary haven where both species' survival instincts would be tested, and the humans, despite being new to interstellar danger, had proven themselves capable of empathy, strategy, and bravery on a level that surprised even the refugees. In quiet moments between the tasks, Terrans began communicating directly with the aliens, learning to interpret their gestures, colors, and vibrations. They discovered small, profound truths about each other, shared fears, shared desires to survive, and a mutual recognition that survival did not have to mean destruction. The refugees' technology, once incomprehensible, was now a tool humans could begin to understand, not just for defense but for cooperation and growth. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the clearing and the damaged ship, the Terrans made a decision. They would help the refugees rebuild their vessel, prepare it for the next stage of their journey, and stand ready if the threat ever returned. It was an agreement born of necessity but strengthened by respect. Both species had faced the edge of fear and emerged with something more, an understanding that courage, when paired with compassion, could overcome even the most unexpected challenges. Some Terrans took a moment to reflect on the experience, thinking about the weight of responsibility they had carried. They had stood between strangers and danger, chosen to act when hesitation could have cost lives, and discovered that humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the willingness to protect and to trust. The refugees, in turn, seemed to acknowledge that Earth was more than a temporary refuge. It was a place where hope could take root, even amidst uncertainty. By midday, the camp had been transformed, debris cleared, shelters reinforced, and the ship stabilized, ready to continue its journey. Humans and refugees moved side by side, a living testament to cooperation and perseverance. And although the distant threat still lingered in the back of their minds, there was no longer fear dominating every thought. There was determination, courage, and the quiet thrill of having faced the unknown together. Before departing, the refugees performed a ritual of sorts, a series of glowing gestures that conveyed gratitude and respect. The Terrans watched, humbled and inspired, realizing that this was more than thanks. It was an acknowledgement that together, they had changed the course of events for both species. The bond forged in fire and danger was something that could not be erased, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it chose empathy over indifference, courage over fear. As the ship finally lifted from the clearing, its engines humming a steady, resonant tone, the humans felt a mixture of relief and awe. Life on Earth would continue, but the memory of the night the refugees crashed, the courage shown, and the alliance formed would remain. It was a story of survival, trust, and unexpected kinship, proof that even when worlds collide, hope can emerge, and humans can rise to meet challenges that seem beyond imagination. And as the ship disappeared into the sky, leaving only the rising sun and the silent forest behind, the Terrans understood something fundamental. Bravery was not just about facing danger, it was about standing together, even when the odds seemed impossible. That lesson would linger long after the echoes of the night had faded.